This is Trust Me Fam, where the internet's wildest stories meet the truth. In Kazakhstan, over 40,000 women have publicly signed petitions demanding the right to become second wives. Not because of religion, not because of tradition, because they're running out of options. The country is quietly debating whether to legalize polygamy as economic policy. And the women most affected by poverty are the ones pushing hardest for it. This isn't about faith, it's about survival. Men are disappearing from Central Asia at an alarming rate. Not metaphorically, literally. Kazakhstan has one of the worst gender imbalances in the former Soviet world. For every 100 women between the ages of 25 and 40, there are only 89 men. The gap widens every year. Alcoholism kills thousands of men annually. Industrial accidents in the oil and mining sectors claim more. Emigration strips away the educated ones. What's left is a marriage market in collapse. Single women in their 30s are called expired goods. Divorced women are treated worse. The social safety net is thin. Jobs for women pay 30 to 40% less than equivalent male jobs, and so a growing number of women are making a calculated decision. Sharing a husband is better than having none at all. If this sounds medieval, that's because it is, but it's happening right now, and it's not just Kazakhstan. Hit that subscribe button. We uncover stories like this every single week on Trust Me Fam, the ones no one else is talking about. Aigul is 34. She works as a school teacher in Shymkent, Kazakhstan's third largest city. She earns about $300 a month. Rent takes half. Utilities another quarter. What's left barely covers food. She was married once. It ended badly. In her community, that makes her nearly unmarriable. But she met a man. He's 41, runs a small construction business, already married with 2 children. He offered her a deal, move into a separate apartment he'd pay for, become his second wife in an unregistered religious ceremony, and he'd provide financial support. She accepted. Aigul isn't an outlier. She's part of a quiet, growing trend. These arrangements are illegal under Kazakhstani law. Polygamy was banned in 1998, but the law is rarely enforced when it happens in private. Religious leaders perform unregistered nikah ceremonies. No paperwork, no legal recognition, just a spiritual agreement that holds weight in conservative communities. The women have no legal rights, no inheritance, no claim to property. If the man dies, they get nothing. If he leaves, they have no recourse. And yet, thousands are choosing this, because the alternative is worse. Kazakhstan is not a poor country. It's rich in oil, gas, and minerals. It's the wealthiest nation in Central Asia, but that wealth is concentrated. The average household income is around $600 a month. In rural areas, it's half that. Women make up 49% of the workforce, but they're overwhelmingly in low-wage sectors: teaching, nursing, retail, administration. Meanwhile, men dominate the high-paying industries: energy, mining, construction, government. The pay gap isn't just a statistic, it's structural. A single woman in her 30s without a husband is economically vulnerable in ways that are hard to overstate. She has limited access to credit. Banks won't give her a mortgage without a male guarantor in many cases. Landlords prefer families. Child care is expensive, elder care even more so. The state provides almost no support. This isn't a welfare state. This is post-Soviet austerity with a capitalist veneer. And in that environment, marriage isn't romance. It's infrastructure. When that infrastructure breaks down, people adapt, sometimes in ways that seem incomprehensible from the outside. But from the inside, the logic is cold and clear. In 2020, a group of women in southern Kazakhstan started circulating a petition online. Legalize polygamy. Within months, it had over 40,000 signatures, most of them from women. The petition didn't frame polygamy as a religious right, it framed it as economic necessity. The argument went like this: there aren't enough men, the ones who exist are already married, many women will never marry at all under the current system. Allowing polygamy would give them access to financial stability, social legitimacy, and protection. The petition sparked outrage. Feminist groups called it a betrayal. Human rights organizations condemned it. But the women who signed it weren't moved. One of the organizers, a 38-year-old woman named Zana, gave an interview to a local news outlet. She said, "People who criticize us have jobs. They have families. They don't know what it's like to be invisible." That word came up again and again. Invisible. Single women over 30 in conservative regions aren't just unmarried, they're socially erased, excluded from family gatherings, pitied, mocked. For many, becoming a second wife isn't a step down, it's a step toward relevance. The Kazakhstani government has been paralyzed by this issue. Officially, polygamy is illegal. The country prides itself on being secular, modern, forward-looking. But unofficially, polygamy is widespread. Estimates suggest that between 2 and 5% of marriages in Kazakhstan involve multiple wives. In rural areas, especially in the south, the number is higher. Religious authorities have been quietly performing these marriages for years. The state mostly looks the other way. But the petition changed the politics. In 2021, a member of parliament named Jan Seytuamebayev proposed a bill to legalize polygamy under strict conditions. The conditions: the first wife's consent, proof of financial ability to support multiple households, registration with the state. The bill didn't pass. But it didn't die either. It's been tabled, revised, and reintroduced multiple times. Some lawmakers argue that legalization would bring these relationships out of the shadows. It would give second wives legal protections, inheritance rights, child support. Others argue that legalization would normalize a fundamentally unequal arrangement, that it would entrench patriarchy under the guise of pragmatism. The debate is ongoing, and it's getting louder. The obvious answer? Men. A small subset of men specifically. The ones with money. Polygamy doesn't solve the gender imbalance. It concentrates female attention and resources on a smaller pool of men. For every man with 2 wives, there is another man with none. This creates a new underclass: young, single, unmarried men with no economic prospects and no social status. Historically, that demographic is dangerous, unstable, prone to radicalization. But the women who support polygamy aren't thinking about that. They're thinking about themselves. And from their perspective, the system isn't fair, but it's functional. A second wife has access to resources she wouldn't otherwise have: a place to live, money for food, security. It's transactional, but so is poverty. Kazakhstan isn't alone. Across Central Asia, gender imbalances are growing. Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, all facing similar pattern. Male mortality, emigration, economic collapse in rural areas. In Kyrgyzstan, bride kidnapping is still practiced, not as a relic, as a response to the same pressures. When there aren't enough marriageable men and women need marriage to survive, the market distorts. Some women consent to polygamy, some are coerced into it, some are kidnapped outright. The line between choice and desperation is thinner than most people want to admit. This isn't a story about backward cultures. It's a story about what happens when economic systems fail and social safety nets don't exist. People find solutions. Those solutions aren't always pretty. Not everyone is on board. There are women in Kazakhstan who have rejected the entire premise. Feminist activists, journalists, educators. They argue that legalizing polygamy would be a catastrophic step backward, that it would codify inequality, that it would make women even more dependent on men. They're right. But they're also largely urban, educated, financially stable. The women signing petitions for polygamy are not. They're rural, poor, without options. And when you don't have options, principles become a luxury. This is the uncomfortable part. The women asking for polygamy aren't brainwashed. They're not stupid. They're making rational decisions within an irrational system. And that system isn't going to change anytime soon. If Kazakhstan legalizes polygamy, it will set a precedent. Other Central Asian countries will follow. The trend will normalize. The economic dependency of women on men will deepen. The gender imbalance won't improve, it will concentrate. And the men who can't compete in this new marriage market will become a problem. Young, angry, isolated. That demographic has a name in sociology: surplus males. And surplus males have historically been the fuel for violence, extremism, and instability. Kazakhstan is trading one crisis for another. But in the short term, for the women who have no other options, it's a lifeline. That's the paradox. The solution is also the problem. This is what happens when economies fail women, when safety nets disappear, when wages stagnate, when the cost of living outpaces the ability to survive alone. People adapt, sometimes in ways that look like progress, sometimes in ways that look like regression. But the adaptation is real, and it's happening. Kazakhstan isn't legalizing polygamy because it wants to. It's considering it because it doesn't know what else to do. The women signing those petitions aren't celebrating. They're surviving. And survival doesn't care about your politics. It doesn't care about fairness. It just cares about making it to tomorrow. If this made you uncomfortable, good. That means you are paying attention. Hit subscribe. Trust Me Fam brings you stories like this every week. The ones that don't fit into neat narratives. The ones that force you to think. This is Trust Me Fam, where the internet's wildest stories meet the truth. We'll see you next time.